Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, all the way to the Joseon Dynasty of Korea, a period often romanticized with beautiful palaces and elegant traditions. But we're not focusing on the kings or the scholars tonight. Instead, we're going to pull back the silken curtains and peek into a world that, while appearing opulent, was often a gilded cage. We're talking about what it really meant to be a concubine in the Joseon palace. Forget the romantic dramas. The truth is, if you found yourself in this position, your life was likely a suffocating blend of rigid hierarchy, endless competition, and profound misery. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You might enter the palace from many different paths. Perhaps you are a court lady, having served in a minor capacity for years, your beauty and grace eventually catching the king's eye during a fleeting encounter. Or perhaps you are from a fallen noble family, your family hoping that your presence in the palace might restore their fortunes through royal favor. More tragically, you might be a commoner, plucked from obscurity because of your striking appearance. Your family seeing this as an incredible honor, a path to upward mobility, even if it means sacrificing you to a life of perpetual uncertainty. Whatever your origin, the moment you are chosen, your old life effectively ceases to exist. You are now property of the crown, bound to the palace, your destiny inextricably linked to the whims of a single man and the intricate, often brutal, power dynamics of the inner court. The palace itself is a maze of intricate buildings, grand courtyards, and hidden pathways designed to both impress and isolate. Its beauty is undeniable. The vibrant colors of the eaves, the elegant lines of the tiled roofs, the serene ponds, and meticulously manicured gardens. But this beauty is a facade, a thin veil over the intense loneliness and cutthroat competition that define daily life. You are assigned to a small room, perhaps in a wing with other lower-ranking concubines, or, if you are lucky and have already gained some favor, a slightly larger, more secluded chamber. The walls seem to close in, beautiful, yet suffocating. You are surrounded by luxury, yet stripped of true freedom. Your induction into palace life is immediate and overwhelming. You are taught the complex etiquette of the court, a rigid code of conduct that governs every aspect of your existence. How you bow, how you speak, how you walk, how you eat, everything is prescribed. A single misstep can lead to severe reprimand, public humiliation, or worse, the loss of any chance at royal favor. You learn to speak in hushed tones, to move with a quiet grace, to always defer to those above you in the rigid hierarchy. This constant self-awareness, this perpetual performance of submission and elegance, is mentally exhausting. There's no room for spontaneity, no allowance for genuine emotion that might betray your carefully constructed facade. The ultimate goal for every concubine is to catch the king's eye and, crucially, to bear him a son. This is the only path to genuine security and elevated status within the palace. Without royal progeny, especially a male heir, your existence remains precarious, your position vulnerable to the shifting tides of favor. You quickly learn that other concubines, and certainly the queen, are your rivals, each vying for the king's attention. The competition is silent, often outwardly polite, but beneath the surface, it's a relentless, desperate struggle for survival. A cold smile, a perfectly timed whispered word, a subtle act of sabotage. These are the weapons in this invisible war. The concept of privacy, as you knew it in your previous life, simply doesn't exist. You are constantly under the watchful eyes of court ladies, eunuchs, and even other concubines. Every word you speak, every gesture you make, every interaction can be reported, misinterpreted, or used against you. Trust is a luxury you cannot afford. You learn to guard your thoughts, to never reveal your true feelings, to always present a composed and agreeable exterior. This constant self-monitoring breeds an intense sense of paranoia and isolation, even when surrounded by hundreds of people. A less common fact is that even gifts from the king to a concubine were often meticulously recorded and sometimes inspected by other palace officials, ensuring no illicit influence or contraband entered the inner court. Your days become a monotonous cycle of waiting. You wait for an audience with the king. You wait for news. You wait for a chance, however slim, to advance your position. This waiting is interspersed with endless lessons in various palace arts, music, calligraphy, poetry, and sometimes even basic academic subjects. These are not pursuits of passion, but rather tools to enhance your allure, to make you more appealing to the king. The pressure to excel is immense, as failure only diminishes your already fragile standing. The academic debate here often revolves around the extent to which concubines were genuinely educated versus merely trained in superficial accomplishments designed to entertain. The food you eat, while perhaps more refined than what a commoner might consume, is still part of the rigid system. Meals are served according to your rank, with higher-ranking concubines receiving more diverse and luxurious dishes. You are always aware of your place at the table, both literally and figuratively. Even the seemingly simple act of eating is governed by strict etiquette. You are a display, a part of the royal machinery, and every aspect of your existence is designed to reflect the king's power and prestige. As weeks turn into months, and months into years, the reality of your gilded cage sinks in. The initial excitement, the awe of the palace, slowly gives way to a dull, persistent ache of loneliness and powerlessness. You are perpetually aware of the walls around you, beautiful and imposing, but walls nonetheless. They keep you safe from the outside world. Yes, but they also imprison you, severing all ties to your past and limiting your future to the confines of this opulent, yet often miserable, existence. The true misery of a CHOSUN concubine wasn't always grand tragedy, but the grinding, soul-crushing monotony of a life lived perpetually on the precipice of ruin. Dictated by unseen forces and the ever-present shadow of the queen and other rivals. You are an ornament, a potential mother of an heir, but never truly free. The sun rises, casting long shadows across the palace grounds, but inside your chambers, the light barely penetrates the heavy silk screens. Your awakening is not your own. It's dictated by the subtle stirrings of the court ladies who attend to you. A gentle reminder that your time is not your own, and every moment is governed by an unseen clock. Your existence in the Joseon Palace is defined by a rigid hierarchy, a meticulously constructed social ladder where every concubine, from the lowest-ranking Sanggung to the highest Bin, knows her precise, unchangeable place. You wake, and immediately, the process of preparation begins. Your hair is meticulously styled, sometimes with elaborate ornaments, sometimes simply, depending on your rank and the formality of the day. Your clothing is chosen with care. Layers of vibrant silks and intricate embroidery, each color and pattern signifying your status. Even the way you sit, stand, and walk is observed and critiqued. You are a living doll, exquisitely dressed, perfectly coiffed, designed to reflect the king's prestige. The concept of personal style or comfort is non-existent. You wear what is appropriate, what is dictated by the strictures of the court. This daily ritual, seemingly benign, is in fact a constant act of humiliation and subordination, reinforcing your lack of individual agency. Your interactions with others are entirely governed by your rank. You must bow lower to those above you, use deferential language, and never speak unless spoken to by a superior, even among concubines of similar rank. A subtle game of social maneuvering plays out, each woman subtly asserting her position, vying for small advantages. The higher your rank, the more privileges you enjoy. A larger room, more attendants, finer food, and most crucially, a greater chance of catching the king's eye. The lower your rank, the more precarious your existence. The more you are subject to the whims and cruelties of those above you. This constant awareness of your place, this perpetual need to show deference, is mentally exhausting. The most powerful woman in the palace, besides the king himself, is the queen. Her shadow looms large over every concubine. She is the official consort, the mother of the legitimate heir, and her position is unassailable. For concubines, the queen is not merely a figurehead, she is a formidable rival, a potential enemy. Any perceived slight, any overstep, any attempt to gain too much favor from the king can draw her wrath. Her power over your life, and even your death, is immense. Concubines often found themselves caught in delicate power struggles between the king and queen, mere pawns in a much larger game. A fascinating, yet grim, historical fact is that queens in Joseon often had considerable power over the concubines, including the authority to punish them, sometimes severely, for perceived transgressions or for attempting to usurp their status. Beyond the queen, there are the Grand Dowager Queen and the Dowager Queen, the king's mother and grandmother, respectively. These elder royal women wield immense influence, their wisdom and experience commanding respect. Their opinions on concubines, their subtle nods of approval or disapproval, can significantly impact your standing with the king. You learn to navigate this complex web of female power, constantly seeking alliances, avoiding enemies, and always showing the utmost respect to those above you. Your day is a monotonous cycle of waiting and prescribed activities. You attend various ceremonies, often long and tedious, standing in perfectly aligned rows, listening to long pronouncements, all designed to reinforce the majesty of the king. You might spend hours practicing calligraphy or playing a musical instrument, not for personal enjoyment, but because these are accomplishments expected of a concubine. You might be called to attend to the king, to serve him tea, to read to him, or simply to sit in silent attendance. These moments are precious, offering a fleeting chance to gain his attention, but they are also fraught with tension. A wrong move, a poorly chosen word, and the opportunity vanishes, perhaps never to return. The eunuchs and court ladies who serve in the inner court are also powerful figures in their own right. They are the eyes and ears of the palace, privy to every whisper, every secret. They can be invaluable allies, providing information or advocating on your behalf to the king or queen, but they can also be dangerous enemies, capable of spreading rumors, misrepresenting your words, or even subtly sabotaging your efforts. You learn to treat them with respect, to cultivate relationships, but always with a wary eye, knowing that their loyalties can shift with the winds of power. This constant surveillance, this awareness that every action might be reported, fosters a deep sense of paranoia and mistrust. The competition among concubines for the king's favor is silent but fierce. It's a game of patience, subtle manipulation, and outward deference. You might share meals with other concubines, engage in polite conversation, but beneath the surface, you are constantly assessing, constantly calculating. Who is gaining favor? Who is falling out of favor? Who is pregnant? These are the questions that silently consume your thoughts. This ruthless competition makes genuine friendship almost impossible. Every potential ally is also a potential rival. It's a lonely existence, even surrounded by hundreds of people. A peculiar historical detail: concubines would sometimes use elaborate beauty rituals and even special perfumes, often made from rare and expensive ingredients, not just for personal allure but as a subtle way to stand out and attract the king's attention in a crowded field of rivals. There's an academic debate about the true extent of affection or genuine connection between the king and his concubines. While some concubines undoubtedly gained genuine favor and even love, for many, the relationship was primarily transactional, a means to secure progeny and elevate status. The king had hundreds of women in his palace, and his attention was a fleeting, precious commodity. For you, it's not about love, it's about survival, about ensuring your future. Your life is not your own. Your body is not your own. You are a vessel for the continuation of the royal line, a pawn in the intricate power struggles of the Joseon court. The beautiful palace, with its silken robes and fragrant gardens, becomes a psychological prison. Every smile you offer, every deference you show, every whispered word is a calculated move in a desperate game. And as the day draws to a close, and you retire to your secluded chambers, the silence of the palace is not peaceful. It's heavy with the weight of unseen eyes, unspoken rivalries, and the constant crushing pressure of your precarious existence. The sun rises again, painting the palace eaves with hues of gold and crimson. But for you, the concubine, it marks not a new beginning, but the continuation of an unyielding regimen. Your life is an intricate dance of daily rituals, each step prescribed, each movement observed. It's a relentless performance for an audience of one the king and a silent competition against hundreds of rivals. This is a life defined by endless waiting and constant scrutiny. Your morning begins with a flurry of activity around you. Court ladies, assigned to your chambers based on your rank, attend to your every need. They help you bathe, meticulously choose your attire from a selection of silks and brocades, and meticulously style your hair. Every pin, every ornament, is placed with precision, reflecting your status and the day's specific protocols. You are a living ornament, a reflection of the king's prosperity and prestige. Even the choice of your undergarments, though unseen, must adhere to palace standards. This meticulous preparation isn't about personal comfort. It's about presenting a flawless facade, a constant reminder that your body and appearance are not truly your own. Once dressed, you might engage in your morning studies. These aren't optional pursuits of leisure, but mandatory exercises designed to refine your accomplishments. You might practice calligraphy, your brushstrokes needing to be perfect, conveying grace and discipline. Or you might spend hours on a musical instrument, perhaps the gaiagium or gyomungo, ensuring every note is flawless, every melody enchanting. You might even study classical texts or poetry, expanding your knowledge to engage the king in sophisticated conversation, should the rare opportunity arise. The pressure to excel in these arts is immense, as a single discordant note or a clumsy brushstroke could be seen as a reflection on your character, or worse, a lack of dedication. Meals are formal affairs, eaten in a designated area, often with other concubines of similar rank. The food, while seemingly luxurious, is served according to a rigid protocol, reflecting your position in the hierarchy. You eat in silence or engage in hushed, polite conversation, always aware of the watchful eyes of the court ladies and eunuchs. Every bite, every sip, is observed. There's no casual dining, no comfort in a simple meal shared freely. Even the act of eating becomes a performance, a demonstration of your adherence to palace etiquette. This constant formality makes even basic human functions feel stifling. Much of your day is spent waiting. You wait for an audience with the queen, or with the Grand Dowager Queen, often for hours, standing or sitting perfectly still, ready to respond instantly. You wait for an invitation from the king, a summons that could elevate your status, or, if it never comes, reinforce your insignificance. This waiting is a mental torment, a slow burn of anticipation and anxiety. You are always prepared, always ready, yet utterly powerless. This pervasive sense of anticipation, this constant state of readiness for a call that may never come, is a unique form of psychological torture. When an audience with the king does occur, it's a moment of intense pressure. You approach him with the prescribed bows and deferential language, your heart pounding. You might serve him tea, read him a poem, or simply sit in quiet attendance while he discusses matters of state with his officials. Every glance, every word he utters, is meticulously scrutinized by you and by everyone else in the room. a subtle smile, a lingering gaze. These are interpreted as signs of favor, fueling both your hopes and the jealousies of your rivals. A dismissive gesture, a blank stare. These plunge you into despair, signaling a potential loss of favor. The king's attention is a fickle, fleeting thing, and your entire existence hinges on it. A common historical detail, though not always confirmed for every specific Joseon king, is that some kings would consult with their concubines on trivial matters or even state affairs, treating them as sounding boards, which offered concubines a rare glimpse into the outside world, yet also placed them in a precarious position. Beyond the formal duties, you are perpetually aware of the scrutiny. Every interaction, every whispered word, every expression on your face can be reported to higher authorities. The court ladies and eunuchs, while serving you, are also the eyes and ears of the palace, loyal first and foremost to the king and queen. You learn to speak in polite generalities, to never reveal your true thoughts or feelings, to construct a persona that is agreeable, demure, and utterly harmless. Trust is a dangerous gamble in this environment, where a misinterpreted word can lead to ruin. This constant need for self-censorship creates a deep sense of loneliness and emotional suppression. Even your personal life, or what little remains of it, is subject to rules. If you have family outside the palace, visits are rare, often supervised, and heavily restricted. Letters might be censored. Your past life slowly fades, replaced by the suffocating reality of the palace. You are disconnected from the outside world, a prisoner within walls that are beautiful but unbreakable. There's a fascinating yet unsettling detail about palace life. The rigid schedule extended even to the king's intimate relations. The choice of which concubine the king would spend the night with was often decided not by his personal whim alone, but through a complex system that could involve the queen, the dowager queen, or even astrologers. This made the competition even more agonizing, as your chance for progeny and elevation was often not entirely in your own hands, but subject to bureaucratic decision-making. This is a point of academic debate, with some historians arguing for greater royal autonomy, while others emphasize the pervasive influence of palace customs and senior women. As the day ends, you retire to your chambers, the elaborate attire removed, your hair unbound. But even in the solitude of your room, you are not truly alone. The silent weight of the palace, the echoes of unseen rivals, and the ever-present anxiety about your future fill the space. Sleep offers only a brief respite before the endless cycle of waiting, performing, and competing begins anew. Your life is a continuous state of performance, a beautiful, tragic tableau where every concubine plays her part, hoping for a glimmer of favor, fearing the inevitable fade into obscurity. The elegant architecture, the rustling silks, the hushed whispers. The Joseon Palace may seem like a haven of serenity, but beneath its polished exterior lies a ruthless arena. For you, a concubine. This is the inner court, a web of rivals. Every woman around you, from your closest attendant to the highest-ranking concubine, is a potential competitor, an ally of convenience, or a silent enemy. This isn't a world of open conflict, but of subtle manipulation, whispered rumors, and constant, debilitating paranoia. You learn quickly that trust is a luxury you cannot afford. The court ladies who attend to your personal needs, the eunuchs who manage the palace's daily operations, even your fellow concubines, all of them are eyes and ears. Every word you speak, every expression that flits across your face, every interaction can be reported to higher authorities, twisted, and used against you. A seemingly innocent comment about the king's preferences, a casual complaint about your living quarters, or a moment of frustration can be meticulously recorded and presented as a grave transgression. This constant surveillance forces you into a perpetual state of guardedness. You learn to speak in polite generalities, to always smile, even when your heart aches, and to never reveal your true thoughts or feelings. This emotional suppression is profoundly isolating, even when you are surrounded by hundreds of people. The hierarchy of concubines is complex and fiercely guarded. At the very top, beneath the queen, are the bin-pin, high-ranking concubines who have often borne sons to the king. Below them are a series of lower ranks, each with varying privileges, living quarters, and levels of access to the king. Your entire life revolves around moving up this ladder, a climb that is precarious and often involves stepping over others. If you are of a lower rank, you are constantly vulnerable to the whims and cruelties of those above you. A higher-ranking concubine might demand your attendance, force you to perform menial tasks, or simply make your life miserable through petty acts of power. Retaliation is almost impossible. Your only recourse is silent endurance or hoping for a chance to gain greater favor with the king. Rumors and gossip are the lifeblood of the inner court. A misplaced look, a whispered conversation, a gift from the king. Anything can be twisted into a malicious rumor designed to undermine a rival. You become adept at reading subtle cues, at discerning the hidden meanings behind seemingly innocuous remarks. You learn to interpret the fleeting expressions on a court lady's face, the sudden silence when you enter a room. Information is power, and secrets are currency. A fascinating, yet disturbing, historical fact is that palace eunuchs, due to their unique position of access to both the king and the inner court, often served as key conduits for gossip and intrigue, sometimes deliberately manipulating information to gain influence. The most dangerous rival, however, is the queen herself. While she maintains an outward appearance of benevolent authority, she views every concubine as a potential threat to her position, especially if you manage to bear a male heir. Her power is absolute within the inner court, and she can make your life a living hell with a single word or gesture. She controls access to the king, can dictate your living conditions, and has the authority to inflict severe punishments, even death, for perceived transgressions. You live perpetually in her shadow, constantly aware of her potential wrath. There's an ongoing academic debate among historians about the degree of independent power held by CHOSUN queens and whether they truly acted as sovereign figures within the palace or were merely extensions of the king's will. The competition for the king's favor is not always aggressive. Sometimes it's a subtle game of display and allure. You spend countless hours perfecting your appearance, your accomplishments in arts and letters, all designed to make you more appealing to the king during his rare visits or audiences. You might hear whispers of another concubine's newfound favor, a gift she received, or a longer audience she had with the king. These whispers ignite a cold dread in your stomach, a surge of jealousy and desperation. Your value, your very survival, depends entirely on his fleeting attention. Consider the psychological toll of this existence. You are constantly on edge, perpetually performing, and unable to form genuine connections. Loneliness becomes a suffocating presence, even in the crowded confines of the palace. The inability to trust anyone, combined with the constant fear of being undermined, slowly erodes your sense of self. You become a shell of your former self, a carefully constructed persona designed solely for survival within this cutthroat environment. It's a subtle form of torture, a constant erosion of your spirit. Even alliances are fragile and temporary. You might form a temporary bond with another concubine, driven by a common enemy or a shared ambition. But these alliances are always conditional, always susceptible to being broken the moment one of you gains a slight advantage. The fear of betrayal is always present, a sharp edge beneath the veneer of politeness. A particularly cunning tactic used by some concubines was to cultivate relationships with the king's personal physicians, hoping to gain privileged information about his health, or even to discreetly influence his preferences through special herbal remedies or tonics. This less-known detail highlights the lengths to which some would go to gain an edge. Yes. So, as you navigate the silken corridors, your every step careful, your every word measured, you are acutely aware that you are treading a treacherous path. The opulent beauty of the inner court belies its true nature, a battleground of ambition, where whispers are weapons, Smiles are masks, and trust is a dangerous illusion. Your life as a concubine is not just about serving the king. It is about surviving a relentless, silent war against your own kind. A war fought with the most insidious of weapons, intrigue and paranoia. You've navigated the treacherous waters of the inner court, understanding that every smile hides a rival, and every whisper could be a trap. But amidst the suffocating routine and constant scrutiny, there is one fleeting, dangerous prize that every concubine desperately covets: royal favor. Gaining the king's attention is the ultimate goal, the only path to true power and, ironically, a momentary sense of security in your gilded cage. Yet, this gift is as fleeting as it is potent, and its allure masks immense peril. The king's gaze is a rare commodity. You might spend weeks, even months, without seeing him, your existence fading into the background of palace life. Then, a summons arrives, perhaps delivered by a solemn eunuch or a stern court lady. Your heart leaps with a mixture of terror and exhilaration. This is your chance. You meticulously prepare, your attendants working quickly to adorn you in your finest silks, to style your hair perfectly, to apply the most fragrant perfumes. Every detail is considered, every imperfection concealed. You are a masterpiece, presented for royal appraisal. This ritualistic preparation is less about your personal desire and more about presenting an ideal, a vision of beauty and refinement that might capture the king's elusive attention. When you finally stand before him, whether in his private chambers, a study, or during a formal audience, the air is thick with anticipation. You are acutely aware of the other eyes in the room, the watchful court ladies, the silent eunuchs, perhaps even other concubines or members of the royal family. Every gesture you make, every word you speak, is under intense scrutiny. You speak softly, demurely, but with a carefully practiced grace. You might read him poetry, play a musical instrument, or engage in a brief, deferential conversation about the weather or a recent court event. The objective is not deep connection, but a momentary spark of interest. A fleeting recognition that distinguishes you from the myriad other women in the palace. A little-known fact is that some CHOSUN kings were known to be particularly drawn to concubines with intellectual prowess, engaging them in discussions on philosophy or statecraft, a subtle way for these women to gain influence beyond mere beauty. If you are fortunate enough to capture his attention, even for a single night, the repercussions are immediate and profound. Your rank may be elevated, meaning better living quarters, more attendants, finer food, and a larger allowance. Suddenly, the court ladies who once treated you with indifference now bow deeper, their smiles more genuine, or at least more convincing. Your rivals, who once dismissed you, now eye you with thinly veiled envy and newfound caution. The power dynamics within the inner court shift, however subtly, and for a brief time, you feel a surge of power, a sense of having finally achieved something tangible. This rise in status, however, is a double-edged sword. With increased favor comes increased peril. The higher you climb, the greater the fall. The queen, whose authority is absolute, will view your newfound favor with suspicion, if not outright hostility. Other concubines, desperate for their own advancement, will redouble their efforts to undermine you. Every small mistake, every minor misstep, will be amplified and reported. You are now a larger target, a more prominent threat to be neutralized. The whispers grow louder, the watchful eyes more intense. Your every move becomes a delicate balance between maintaining the king's attention and avoiding the wrath of your powerful enemies. The ultimate aim of royal favor, for many concubines, is to bear a son. A male heir is the golden ticket, elevating you to a position of relatively secure power and ensuring your future, even if the king's affections wane. If you conceive and carry a son to term, Your status is significantly enhanced. You are no longer just a concubine. You are the mother of a royal prince, a potential future king. This status brings respect, greater resources, and a measure of protection, though still not absolute immunity from palace intrigues. This dream of progeny fueled the intense competition, transforming the biological act into a political imperative. The common historical understanding is that bearing a prince was the highest achievement for a concubine, though some historians still debate whether a queen's power over a concubine was truly diminished after the concubine bore a prince, or if the queen simply shifted her strategies. However, royal favor is notoriously fickle. The king's attention can shift as quickly as the wind. A new face might arrive in the palace, a more captivating dancer, a more skilled poet, and suddenly, your moment in the sun begins to dim. You watch helplessly as his gaze, once fixed on you, drifts to another. The gifts stop coming, the summonses cease, and your chambers grow silent once more. This sudden loss of favor is devastating, plunging you from the heights of hope into the depths of despair. The transition can be brutal, leaving you feeling utterly worthless and vulnerable. You are left with the crushing realization that your value was always dependent on the king's fleeting interest, not on any inherent worth of your own. The emotional toll of this constant uncertainty is immense. You live on a knife edge, constantly oscillating between hope and fear. Every gesture from the king is analyzed, every word dissected for hidden meaning. The pressure to maintain his attention, to anticipate his desires, is exhausting. You learn to suppress your own emotions, to project an image of calm composure, even as your heart races and your mind churns with anxiety. This life of perpetual performance, where your future hangs on the whims of one man, slowly erodes your spirit. Even the simple act of receiving a royal gift, while a sign of favor, can be fraught with danger. Was it a genuine sign of affection, or a test? Would it provoke jealousy from other concubines, or, worse, suspicion from the queen? You might find yourself subtly displaying the gift, hoping to garner respect, or perhaps hiding it away, fearing the envy it might inspire. The very symbols of your success become sources of anxiety. This strange reality, where even positive attention could be a precursor to trouble, paints a stark picture of the concubine's precarious existence. So, as you cling to every fleeting moment of the king's attention, you understand that royal favor is not a lasting reward but a temporary reprieve, a precarious foothold on a slippery slope. It grants you power, yes, but it also paints a target on your back. Drawing the jealousies of your rivals and the watchful eye of the queen, it is a dangerous gift, a gilded invitation to a life of perpetual anxiety, where your existence hangs by the thinnest thread of imperial whim. You've experienced the brief, terrifying thrill of royal favor and the bitter taste of its inevitable withdrawal. You understand the intricate dance of hierarchy and the venomous whispers of rivalry. Now, as the years wear on, a new, profound hope emerges, one that can dramatically alter your fate, childbirth, and legacy. For a CHOSUN concubine, bearing a son is the ultimate goal, the only true path to elevating your status and securing your future. Yet, this hope is always intertwined with immense peril. The moment you realize you are pregnant, a wave of conflicting emotions washes over you. There is immense joy, a surge of optimism that this child, especially if male, could be your salvation, your anchor in the treacherous waters of palace life. But there is also profound fear. Pregnancy makes you vulnerable. Your body changes, you become slower, and the constant scrutiny intensifies. Every morning sickness, every craving, every subtle shift in your demeanor is watched, reported, and analyzed. Other concubines, consumed by jealousy, might spread rumors about your health, your character, or even the paternity of the child, hoping to undermine your precious hope. The queen, particularly, will view your pregnancy with a cold, calculating eye, seeing a potential threat to her own lineage and authority. The palace provides you with enhanced care during your pregnancy. You receive better food, more attendance, and special tonics believed to ensure a healthy birth. However, this attention also means closer supervision. Every aspect of your health is monitored by palace physicians, who report directly to the king and queen. You are essentially a vessel, a precious commodity carrying the future of the royal line. The pressure to deliver a healthy male heir is immense, an unspoken weight that presses down on you with every passing day. The common belief was that the well-being of the fetus was directly linked to the mother's emotional state, adding another layer of anxiety. As your pregnancy progresses, the anticipation in the inner court becomes palpable. Whispers and speculation abound. If you already have a high rank, your pregnancy solidifies your position, at least temporarily. If you are of a lower rank, this pregnancy is your golden ticket, your chance to ascend the rigid hierarchy. But the dangers are manifold. Miscarriage is a constant, terrifying possibility, often seen as a sign of divine disfavor or, more dangerously, as the result of a rival's dark magic or poison. You learn to be incredibly careful, to avoid any food or drink that seems suspicious, to trust only the most loyal of your attendants. The academic debate among historians often touches on the prevalence of infanticide or induced miscarriages in royal courts. Though concrete evidence for such acts in Joseon is rare, the fear was undeniably present. Childbirth itself is a perilous ordeal. In Joseon, Korea, as in most pre-modern societies, maternal and infant mortality rates were high. You face the very real risk of dying in childbirth, leaving your child motherless and vulnerable. Even if you survive, the pain and exhaustion are immense. The delivery takes place within the palace, attended by skilled midwives and physicians, but without the modern medical advancements we take for granted. You endure it all, knowing that every push brings you closer to either immense triumph or profound tragedy. If you bear a son, a wave of relief and triumph washes over you. The news reverberates through the palace, reaching the king's ears immediately. Your status is instantly elevated. You might receive a higher concubine rank, a more luxurious residence, and a larger allowance. Your son, a royal prince, is placed under the care of dedicated wet nurses and court ladies, though you, as his birth mother, retain a special, undeniable bond. This child is your legacy, your insurance policy against a return to obscurity. He is your reason for living, and every ounce of your being is now dedicated to his well-being and advancement within the complex royal family. This elevation to mother of a royal prince was the highest possible status for a concubine, giving them significant influence, though never surpassing the queen. However, even with a prince, the peril does not entirely vanish. Your son is now a potential rival to the queen's legitimate heir. The queen, whose power is absolute, will view your son with suspicion, if not outright hostility. She might try to subtly undermine his education, his health, or his relationship with the king. You must become a fierce protector of your child, constantly vigilant against any real or perceived threats. This turns the competition within the inner court into a battle for the very lives and futures of your children, a far more intense and desperate struggle. A curious detail is that wet nurses for royal princes were often chosen with extreme care, not just for their health and character, but also to ensure they had no pre-existing loyalties that could be exploited by rival factions within the palace. If you bear a daughter, while still in honor, it doesn't offer the same level of security or elevation of status as a son. Daughters are valuable for political marriages, but they don't secure the royal lineage in the same way a prince does. Your position, while perhaps slightly improved, remains more precarious, and the pressure to produce a male heir persists. This gender preference is a stark reality of the patriarchal Joseon society, where a female child, while loved, did not offer the same political leverage. The joy of motherhood in the palace is often bittersweet. While you have borne a child, especially a son. You do not have the freedom to raise him as you might in an ordinary family. Royal children are primarily raised by court ladies and eunuchs, educated in strict palace protocols, and groomed for their roles from a young age. While you have access to your child, your interactions are often formal and supervised. The distance between mother and child, enforced by palace rules, is a source of quiet sorrow for many concubines. You are a biological mother, but not a primary caregiver in the way a commoner woman might be. So, as you cradle your newborn, or watch your young prince from a distance, you understand the immense power and vulnerability that childbirth brings. It is a moment of profound hope, a chance to carve out a secure future in the treacherous labyrinth of the CHOSUN palace. But it is also a source of constant anxiety, fueling the jealousies of your rivals and placing your beloved child in the direct line of palace intrigues. Your legacy, your security, and your very essence are now tied to this fragile, precious life, making your existence even more of a tightrope walk than before. You have navigated the treacherous currents of palace politics, felt the fleeting touch of royal favor, and perhaps even experienced the profound joy and profound anxiety of bearing a child. But within the gilded walls of the CHOSUN palace, an insidious, ever-present threat lurks, one that preys on all, from the lowest maid to the highest-ranking concubine's sickness and seclusion. Illness is not merely a physical affliction here, it is a weapon, a curse, and a pathway to isolation and neglect. The air within the palace, despite its outward grandeur, can be damp and stagnant, especially in certain seasons. Winter brings biting cold, with inadequate heating in many chambers, leading to coughs and chills. Summer brings oppressive humidity, ripe for the spread of fevers and digestive ailments. You live in close proximity with many others, and once an illness takes hold, it can spread quickly through the crowded servants' quarters and even into the more secluded chambers of the concubines. A common illness, like a persistent cough or a recurring fever, can quickly escalate from a nuisance to a serious threat. There's no escaping the germs that float through the palace air, carried by servants, court ladies, and even visiting officials. When you fall ill, the immediate reaction from the palace staff is a mix of concern and scrutiny. Palace physicians are summoned, but their approach is often rudimentary by modern standards. They rely on herbal remedies, acupuncture, and traditional diagnoses based on imbalances in the body's energies. While some treatments might offer relief, many are ineffective, and some concoctions might even be harmful. You are subjected to their examinations, your pulse taken, your tongue inspected, every detail of your symptoms carefully noted. This isn't just about your health, it's about discerning if your illness could affect the king, if it's contagious, or, more sinisterly, if it's a sign of some moral failing or even a curse. If your illness is deemed severe, or if it's perceived as potentially contagious, you are immediately subjected to seclusion. You are moved to a remote part of the palace, often a small, isolated chamber, far from the main living quarters. Your attendants are restricted, and those who remain are often chosen not for their caregiving skills, but for their loyalty and ability to prevent the spread of information. This isolation is profoundly terrifying. You are cut off from the gossip, the news, and most importantly, from any chance of seeing the king. Your rivals will seize this opportunity, spreading rumors about your weakened state, suggesting that your illness is a sign of divine displeasure, or even hinting at a terminal condition. Your absence from court, even if for legitimate illness, can be interpreted as a loss of favor, and your position can quickly erode. The queen, in particular, might use your illness as an opportunity to weaken your standing or even to subtly punish you. She might send inferior medicines, delay the arrival of physicians, or simply restrict your access to nourishing food, all under the guise of care. This is a subtle form of cruelty, a way to exert power without overt confrontation. This calculated neglect can turn a treatable illness into a life-threatening one, demonstrating the chilling power dynamics at play. The academic debate often asks whether such neglect was truly malicious, or simply a reflection of the limited medical knowledge and poor hygiene of the time. Though the former is certainly a possibility given the high stakes, the loneliness of isolation is a crushing burden. You lie in your remote chamber, listening to the silence, your only companions, the occasional attendant, and the whispers of your own fear. You wonder if the king remembers you, if your child is being cared for, if your rivals are celebrating your absence. The lack of information, the feeling of being completely cut off, can be as debilitating as the illness itself. Your mind, already strained by the constant pressure of palace life, succumbs to anxiety and despair. A particularly grim aspect of this reality is the fear of poison. In a court rife with intrigue, a sudden mysterious illness can easily be attributed to foul play. You become paranoid about your food and drink, suspecting every meal, every tonic. Did a rival bribe an attendant? Did someone slip a slow-acting poison into your tea? This pervasive fear adds another layer of misery to your already precarious existence. While specific documented cases of concubines being poisoned for status are rare in Joseon historical records, the fear was a very real, driving force in their lives, leading to extreme caution. This lesser-known detail underscores the ever-present danger. Even if you recover from your illness, the return to palace life is not always a triumphant one. You might find that your position has diminished, that the king's favor has shifted, or that new rivals have emerged in your absence. You have to fight to regain your footing, to re-establish your presence, often from a weakened state. The period of illness, while a physical struggle, is also a profound strategic setback in the relentless game of the inner court. You are forced to quickly catch up on the latest gossip, the new alliances, and the shifts in power that occurred while you were confined. The psychological toll of enduring an illness in such an environment is immense. You are not only battling your physical symptoms, but also the gnawing fear of political ruin, the isolation from your child, and the potential for malicious plots. Your spirit is weakened, your resolve tested. You emerge from your sickbed, if you do, not fully recovered, but forever marked by the experience, more wary, more paranoid, and perhaps more cynical about the nature of palace life. The beauty of the palace now seems even more superficial, a thin veil over its inherent cruelty. So, as you battle your illness in the quiet solitude of your chambers, the grand palace outside your window seems more like a beautiful prison than ever before. Sickness here is not just a personal struggle, it is a political vulnerability, a weapon in the silent war of the inner court, ensuring that even in your moments of physical weakness, the mental anguish of being a Joseon concubine never truly fades. You've survived the relentless cycle of daily rituals, the anxieties of royal favor, and the terrifying vulnerability of illness. But even as you navigate these perils, a deeper, more insidious danger constantly lurks within the seemingly serene palace walls. Palace intrigues. This is a world where whispers are poison, alliances are fleeting, and every shadow might conceal a conspiracy designed to destroy you. The Joseon court, like many imperial courts throughout history, was a hotbed of political maneuvering. Beyond the direct competition for the king's affections, there were larger power struggles at play between different factions of the nobility, between various ministers, and most importantly, between the queen's family and any rising power from concubines or their families. You, as a concubine, are often a pawn in these grander schemes. Your fate tied to the success or failure of forces far beyond your control. You learn to listen, to observe, to decipher the subtle cues that indicate a shift in political winds, a casual remark by a eunuch, an unusual meeting between high-ranking officials, a sudden dismissal of a court lady. These seemingly minor events can signal the beginning of a dangerous new intrigue. The most potent weapon in this clandestine warfare is the whisper. A rumor, expertly crafted and subtly spread, can destroy a reputation, undermine a position, or even lead to severe punishment. You might hear whispers about another concubine's alleged misconduct, her secret family connections, or even accusations of witchcraft or disloyalty. These whispers, often baseless, gain traction in the cloistered environment of the palace, where fear and suspicion are rampant. And just as easily, those whispers can turn against you. An anonymous letter to the queen, a fabricated accusation, a distorted story. These can plunge you into a terrifying struggle for your very life. The lack of transparent justice means that accusations, however flimsy, can lead to swift and brutal consequences. Poison is not just a fear during illness. It's a constant, chilling possibility in the realm of palace intrigue. You become incredibly cautious about what you eat and drink, especially if it's prepared by someone you don't fully trust. The stories of concubines or even queens being secretly poisoned for political reasons, while perhaps exaggerated in folklore, are rooted in the very real paranoia that permeated the court. Even a persistent, non-fatal illness could be a sign of a slow-acting poison designed to weaken you, diminish your beauty, and render you infertile. This constant vigilance, this deep-seated suspicion about everything consumed, is a heavy psychological burden. A curious, lesser-known detail is that some concubines, particularly those with a strong backing from a powerful family, would employ their own food tasters, usually trusted personal attendants, as a subtle layer of defense against potential poisoning attempts. Alliances are fluid and dangerous. You might find yourself drawn into a temporary alliance with another concubine, perhaps against a common rival, or because your families share political interests. But these alliances are always precarious, subject to betrayal at any moment. The person you trust today could be your undoing tomorrow, especially if their own interests shift, or if they are offered a better deal by a more powerful faction. This constant need to assess loyalties, to predict betrayals, makes true friendship almost impossible and fuels a profound sense of isolation. The academic debate often focuses on the actual prevalence of such extreme palace intrigues versus the more common bureaucratic infighting. But the pervasive fear among concubines suggests that these dangers, real or perceived, significantly shape their lives. Even the king, the source of your potential power, can inadvertently be drawn into these intrigues. Competing factions might try to influence his decisions, to turn him against one concubine in favor of another, or to use a favored concubine as a means to gain political leverage. Your personal relationship with the king becomes a tool in a larger political game, and you might find yourself unknowingly caught in the crossfire of power struggles that have nothing to do with your personal desires or ambitions. His favor, which seemed like your salvation, can quickly become your greatest vulnerability. The eunuchs, with their unparalleled access to the inner workings of the palace and their often intricate network of informants, played a significant role in many intrigues. They could relay messages, spread rumors, or even facilitate secret meetings. Their loyalties were often to themselves or to the highest bidder, making them dangerous figures in the game of power. Similarly, high-ranking court ladies, with their intimate knowledge of palace routines and personalities, could be instrumental in either perpetrating or exposing conspiracies. Navigating these complex relationships, discerning who to trust and who to fear, becomes a constant mental challenge. The consequences of being caught in an intrigue, even if innocent, can be devastating. You could be stripped of your rank, banished from the palace to a remote and austere location, or even executed, often with little to no formal trial. Your family, too, could suffer, facing disgrace, exile, or worse. This risk extends beyond your personal fate, impacting your entire lineage. This terrifying reality means you must always be vigilant, always anticipate the worst, and always strive to remain beyond reproach, even when surrounded by depravity. So, as you walk the palace corridors, beautiful but menacing, you feel the weight of unseen eyes, the chill of unspoken threats. Every whispered conversation, every closed door, every sudden silence sends a ripple of anxiety through you. Your survival as a Joseon concubine is not just about charming the king or bearing a son. It is about navigating a deadly labyrinth of palace intrigues, where your life, your child's future, and your family's honor hang precariously by the thinnest thread of circumstance and the cruel whims of power. The air itself seems thick with plots, and you are perpetually on guard. A prisoner in a beautiful, treacherous cage, you've survived the silent battles of the inner court, dodged the venomous whispers, and perhaps even nurtured a royal child amidst the intrigue. Yet, above all the concubines, above even the most favored, looms an unassailable power, the Empress's shadow. The queen is the ultimate authority within the female quarters of the palace, a figure whose very existence casts a long, formidable shadow over your ambitions, your security, and even your life. From the moment you enter the palace, you are made acutely aware of the queen's singular position. She is the legitimate consort, chosen through a rigorous process, often for her lineage and political connections, not just her beauty. She is the mother of the primary heir to the throne, and her role is central to the stability of the entire dynasty. For every concubine, the queen is not merely a figurehead. She is the supreme arbiter of your fate within the inner court. Her word, though often delivered through eunuchs or senior court ladies, is law. You learn to bow lower to her, to speak in the most deferential tones, and to never, ever cross her. The queen views every concubine as a potential threat. Her primary duty is to secure the royal lineage through her own sons, and any child born to a concubine, particularly a male, is a direct challenge to her children's future and her own power. This makes her vigilance relentless and her potential wrath terrifying. She may outwardly appear benevolent, hosting formal gatherings and engaging in polite conversation. But beneath the surface, she is constantly assessing, constantly calculating, and always ready to act against perceived rivals. Her smile can be as cold as ice, and her seemingly benign inquiries can be veiled warnings. Her power manifests in myriad ways. She controls access to the king for concubines. A concubine's chance to gain favor, to spend a night with the king, often depends on the queen's silent approval, or at least her decision not to intervene. She can subtly or not so subtly influence the king's preferences, diverting his attention from a rising concubine or promoting one she deems less threatening. This control over physical proximity to the king is a powerful weapon, allowing her to starve out rivals before they even have a chance to gain significant favor. The queen also has immense authority over your daily life and living conditions. She can dictate your allowance, assign you less desirable living quarters, or limit your attendance. If she chooses, she can make your life profoundly miserable through countless petty humiliations and restrictions, all while maintaining an outward facade of propriety. She might send you less desirable food, or delay essential supplies, ensuring your discomfort without resorting to overt cruelty. This constant low-level oppression is a form of psychological torture, eroding your spirit day by day. Perhaps most terrifyingly, the queen holds the power to punish. For perceived insubordination, for breaking palace rules, or for any perceived slight, she can order severe retribution. This could range from public humiliation and physical beatings to banishment from the palace, and in extreme cases, historically, queens have been implicated in the deaths of rival concubines, whether through subtle poisoning or orchestrating accusations that lead to execution. While such drastic measures were rare and highly controversial, the fear of them was ever present, a chilling deterrent that kept concubines in line. The academic debate here often centers on the extent to which these actions were individual acts of cruelty versus systematic uses of power within the accepted norms of the court. Even if you bear a son, your situation remains precarious under the queen's shadow. Your child becomes a pawn in the larger game. The queen might try to exert influence over his upbringing, his education, or his access to the king. She might subtly try to undermine his legitimacy, or spread rumors about his health or character. You must constantly protect your son, advocating for him, defending him, all while navigating the delicate line between fierce maternal protectiveness and perceived disrespect for the queen. A curious lesser-known detail from Joseon history is that some queens would adopt concubine-born princes as their own, theoretically securing their loyalty, but also placing the birth mother in an even more subordinate role. The queen's family, particularly her male relatives, also wield significant political power outside the palace. Their influence can extend to court appointments, military commands, and even the selection of future queens. This external network provides an additional layer of protection and authority for the queen, making her an even more formidable opponent. Crossing the queen often meant crossing a powerful faction of the Joseon elite, a gamble few concubines could afford to take. Your relationship with the queen is a constant tightrope walk. You must show absolute deference, impeccable etiquette, and outwardly unwavering loyalty. Any sign of ambition, any hint of defiance, can invite disaster. You learn to read her moods, to anticipate her desires, to remain as invisible as possible while simultaneously striving for the king's attention. It's a paradox. You must be alluring to the king, but harmless to the queen. This impossible balance defines much of your existence. So, as you move through your days in the opulent palace, you are forever conscious of the formidable presence of the queen. Her power is absolute, her gaze unwavering, and her shadow pervasive. She is the ultimate obstacle to your ambitions, the silent judge of your actions, and the constant reminder that even in the highest echelons of the inner court, your fate is not entirely your own. Your life as a Joseon concubine is a perpetual dance on the edge of a precipice, with the queen's formidable power always threatening to send you tumbling into oblivion. You've walked the palace corridors, felt the chill of unseen eyes, navigated the treacherous currents of favor and despair, and perhaps even held a royal child in your arms. But as the seasons turn and the years unfold, a stark, undeniable truth settles in your world is the palace. And for a Joseon concubine, there is no escape from the palace. Your life, once a vibrant tapestry of family and dreams, has been consumed by these gilded walls, and there is rarely a true exit. The palace is a self-contained universe, vast and intricate, yet utterly isolating. Your ties to your original family, your parents, your siblings, gradually fray and fade. Visits are rare, often supervised, and heavily restricted. Letters might be censored, and the news from the outside world becomes increasingly distant and irrelevant to your daily struggles. You are disconnected, severed from the life you once knew, a ghost haunting the opulent halls. Your past identity slowly dissolves, replaced by your official title, your rank, and your role as a royal concubine. The very concept of home outside these walls becomes a distant, unattainable dream. Even if you fall out of favor with the king, or if your health declines, a concubine is rarely simply sent home. Instead, you might be relegated to a more remote part of the palace, to a smaller, colder chamber, with fewer attendants and less desirable food. You might be assigned menial tasks, or simply left to languish in isolation, a living ghost within the royal compound. This slow, humiliating descent into obscurity within the very walls that once promised glory is a common, tragic fate. Your existence becomes a silent warning to others, a chilling reminder of the ephemeral nature of royal favor. For those who bore no children, or whose children failed to gain significant standing, old age in the palace could be a particularly lonely existence. You would be cared for, perhaps, but with a detached formality. The vibrant social dramas of your youth would be replaced by endless days of quiet solitude, watching new, younger concubines arrive, full of the same hopeful ambitions that once animated you. The palace that once seemed so grand now feels like a tomb, a place where your aspirations have died, leaving only the hollow echo of what might have been. This silent fade into irrelevance, rather than a dramatic banishment, was a common reality for many. The idea of retirement, or a true return to a normal life is almost non-existent for a Joseon concubine. You are bound to the palace for life, a permanent fixture of the royal household. Your loyalty, your service, and your very person belong to the king and the crown. Your purpose is defined by your role within this system. And when that purpose diminishes, you don't leave. You simply become less visible, less important, until you are a mere shadow. There is no official pension or graceful exit into civilian life for concubines. Unlike some other roles within the court, this aspect often goes unmentioned in romanticized accounts. The only true escape is death. And even in death, your passing would be managed by palace protocols, your burial determined by your rank and whether you bore children. Your body would leave the palace, perhaps, but your spirit and your story remain inextricably linked to its silent stones, to the echoes of whispers and ambitions that once filled its chambers. Think of the psychological toll of this absolute confinement. You live a life of perpetual performance, where authenticity is a luxury you cannot afford. Your emotions are suppressed, your desires often unfulfilled. The constant fear of intrigue, the relentless competition, the pervasive lack of genuine trust. All of this slowly erodes your spirit, leaving you a shell of the person you once were. You are perpetually on guard, unable to truly relax, unable to simply be. This constant, low-level anxiety defines your waking hours, and often haunts your dreams. Even the beauty of the palace, which once captivated you, now feels like a mocking illusion. The vibrant colors seem less cheerful, the intricate carvings less magnificent, the serene ponds more like stagnant pools. The gold is just a heavy cage, the silk just binding ropes. You are surrounded by luxury, yet starved of freedom, of agency, of a life truly lived on your own terms. The academic debate often considers the degree to which concubines were victims of circumstance versus active participants in a system they understood. But the inescapable nature of their confinement remains a grim reality. And so, as the twilight deepens over the tiled roofs of the Joseon Palace, you find yourself alone in your chambers, perhaps older, wiser, but infinitely wearier. The sounds of the inner court fade into the background, the distant laughter of children, the rustling of silks, the murmured commands of eunuchs. Your life, once full of possibility, has been lived within these walls. Every breath taken, every tear shed, every silent prayer offered, within the confines of this beautiful, terrible prison. You are a product of the palace, forged by its pressures, defined by its rigid rules, and ultimately, consumed by its inescapable embrace. Your story, a tale of misery and resilience, is etched into the very fabric of this enduring, yet profoundly isolating, empire.